The culture war continues to escalate. This from New York Mag. Donald Trump is destroying my marriage. Really? Donald Trump, person. When I saw this title, I was like, is this like a friend of the Trump family? Or somebody who's in a relationship with someone who's friends of the Trumps, and Donald Trump did something? Is this a personal story? No. This is a story about the culture war and how there are actually people getting divorces over politics, which is crazy. Because I know a lot of people who are together who have very different... this actually blows my mind, because I don't think I could ever be in a relationship with somebody who is like regressive or authoritarian or racist. But apparently there are a lot of people who... you know what? I'll say this. I guess if you're like a moderate Democrat and a moderate Republican, you're going to get along on most things and have basic debates, right? I think that's fair to say. And that's why, you know, I have some friends. Most of my friends are like lefty and even kind of far lefty to an extent, like feminists. But I do have friends who are conservative and we disagree, but... like, we're normal people, so of course we disagree. Normal people disagree on things. Let's read about how Donald Trump is destroying this person's marriage. Shortly after the election is when I became aware of it, says Lois Brenner, a New York-based divorce attorney. People were thinking about splitting up their marriages because of political differences. She'd never encountered this before, but she's since found herself litigating 2 such divorces. After people got over their shock, she says, they started arguing. By now, it's a truism to point out the election of Donald Trump and the Me Too movement have prompted a wholesale realignment of American politics. But it's also sent shockwaves through heterosexual romance. My word, has it now. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have plenty of female supporters. Of course, especially among white women. But politically speaking, as evidenced by the recent midterms, there is an undeniable and growing gender divide in American politics. In 2018, almost 60% of female voters supported Democrats, compared to 47% of male voters, outpacing the gap in other recent elections. Let's just stop and think about that. And I'll add another number. 68% of those female voters supporting Democrat, 68% of millennial women supported Democrats. So the number is even bigger among millennials. What this means is majority of women support Democrats and majority of men supported Republicans. And I know this is controversial, but it is also a scientific fact based on numerous studies and papers that women who are married become Republican and women who are single or get divorced become Democrat. One of the reasons for this, they believe, is that women who are married, there's more wealth, right? With 2 incomes, you have more money, and because you have more money, you tend to be more conservative when it comes to these issues, right? Less you want to give away. Let's carry on. What can make matters unworkable for couples whose viewpoints aren't aligned, says Stephanie Kuntz, a professor of family studies at Evergreen State College. Evergreen. Is that Americans have become increasingly contemptuous of those who hold different positions on divisive political issues. And contempt is singularly destructive for long-term relationships. Mary Madeline and James Carville, says Kuntz, how the hell do they make it work? Yes, seriously. But let's just point out what Evergreen State is and how wonderful, how very interesting it is that someone at Evergreen, the famous college where Brett Weinstein, the progressive, was accused of being a bigot, to say the least, and basically run out of the school. That's where, yes, she is saying that those who hold different positions, it's extremely contemptuous for those who hold different positions on divisive political issues. Right. Yes. Thank you for that astute observation, Professor from Evergreen. Many people with divergent perspectives from their partners have not been able to make it work in the Trump era. A Reuters Ipsos poll completed in early 2017 found that in the months following Trump's election win, 13% of 6,426 participants had cut ties with a friend or family member over political differences. This past summer, another survey of 1,000 people found that a third declared the same. More generally, 29% of respondents to a May 2017 survey said their romantic relationship had been negatively affected by Trump's presidency, and even people ostensibly on the same side of the issue as their partner have run into challenges, with the climate exacerbating or revealing new fault lines. Herewith, 2 couples and 4 individual women, all except the final pair using pseudonyms, talk about how conflict over politics is testing, or even ending, their relationships. I want to point something out. There are a lot of people who say you shouldn't be friends with Trump supporters. And I always thought that was silly, because Trump still falls in line with mainstream American politics. He does. He's bombastic. He's the first president with no political or military experience. There's a lot of firsts with Trump, especially with his attitude, his background. But for the most part, his politics aren't unheard of. People agree with him. That's why he won. He won enough votes to become president. That means people in America agree with him in the mainstream. But I would say this. I would never disassociate with someone because they're a Trump supporter. I have a couple friends who support Trump. That's fine. It's not like we hang out every day. But hey, we'll have a debate about it. We'll go off for a beer and we'll have a discussion, plain and simple. I will say this, though. Out of any of my friends that I have lessened contact with, it is the identitarian, regressive racists. Look, I am not friends with people who are alt-right, identitarian, white nationalists. Just not true. As much as the far left likes to make that fake assessment simply because I've interviewed a few people, there's like some nonsense where someone was accusing me of being friends with James Alsop. I don't know if James Alsop is a white nationalist or anything like that, but I know that he's close enough, I should say. I don't know if that's fair to James, so James, forgive me if I'm incorrect, but he's been, aligned in that direction. Because of that, they try to make it seem like we're friends. Whether or not, I actually don't know what James believes. I don't follow a lot of his content. The point I'm trying to make is, I met him, I think, 2 or 3 times because of these rallies that were taking place. And also on the far left start saying that we're best friends or something. Yeah, not true. I think the person who is considered alt-light or borderline alt-right that I've probably been in contact with the most is probably Lauren Southern. And I think we've maybe been around each other at various events, something like 8 times. Yeah, we don't hang out. I don't talk to these people, and that's what they try to say. But here's the thing. The people who I'm friends with, who are regressive and on the far left, and yes, I have many friends who have drifted into that territory, it's becoming extremely difficult to actually be friends. I try to talk to them. And some people I've actually pulled back from the brink. I have one friend who just went off on me, with all of this racist, far left, regressive nonsense. This typical stuff about discrimination against Asians is okay. They were mad at me for saying, I'm basically opposed to discriminating based on race, but the regressive left is not. And so we got into an argument. And then I said, I have no idea why you're supporting racism against me, right? Do I have to, when I fill out an application for college or a job, do I have to lie about being Asian? And I'm like, I think that may have been a wake-up call for a friend of mine who was like, oh, wait, that is bad. Yeah, maybe you're a racist, right? So it is a threat. The expansion of identitarianism has made it hard for me because my friends on the left support it wholeheartedly. And I can't support someone who's going to go outside and actively participate in racist protests, spouting racist ideology. That's been tough. And when I look at people who are general Trump supporters, they will flat out denounce it. Am I friends with racist Trump supporters? No. And so there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say, oh, but Tim, you're friends with Trump supporters are racist. That's not true. Are there Trump supporters who are racist? For sure. Are the people I know who I am friends with who are Trump supporters racist? No, absolutely not. They're not. I would call them out on it. But they aren't. That's just a lie. Because the far left is racist. You know what I want to point out? I think it's psychological projection. I mentioned this in the past couple of videos. I did a video on this. A study shows that white liberals pretend to be less competent when talking with black people. And they actually said, other studies show that when a white person is presented with someone and they're told the black person is intelligent, they stop pretending to be less competent. That says to me that they are racist. And the idea is that the regressive left, they're white supremacists with guilty consciences. I believe that. I do. Not all of them, obviously, but I think many of them really do feel that way. Because they know they are racist, and they think racist things, and they think minorities are stupid, they assume everyone else must think the same way as them. Because perception is reality. People project their view of the world onto others. And this makes it extremely difficult. Because I'll tell you what, mainstream conservatives, the guy who lives two blocks down from me who's got a Trump flag, he doesn't follow most of this stuff. He's certainly not a racist, and he's going to be like, oh, I don't know about all that. No, I think racism is bad. Great. Am I supposed to be like, well, it doesn't matter, you voted for Trump, therefore you are? No, of course not. I don't want to necessarily read through, I'll read through this one right here from Kristen, because I think it's interesting. She says, growing up, my parents were very liberal. My dad's gay. He's been with his husband now for over 40 years. That was my normal. My mom remarried a guy who's very liberal. I was taught that everybody is equal. But when I was at school, I heard the N-word dropped. I heard Jewish people spoken of very negatively. My stepdad's family was Jewish, so what do? You kind of laugh it off to fit in. In high school, I also had a major drinking problem, but I got great grades so I could fly under the radar. Fast forward, I was an art major at this big university where I really didn't fit in. All these girls had curling irons and were rushing sororities. But again, I didn't want to rock the boat, so I just kept partying more. Then at the end of the year, I was assaulted at a fraternity house and didn't say anything about it. So I go home and I meet this guy. I call him Jeffrey. He was a big Republican and I wasn't, but he was also a big drinker like me. We started dating. It was kind of revenge that I could get a guy like the guy who assaulted me. I could get him to be nice to me. Looking back, it was all very strange. But then Jeffrey and I broke up, and I got married and then had my son, and that relationship lasted for about 14 years. After we got divorced, I got sober, and then in 2010, I found Jeffrey on Facebook. It looked like he was single and had grown up a lot, and we started talking. We had a good time together. I didn't really want to get married again, but I didn't want to make anybody mad, so I said, sure, let's get married. That's a really weird thing, by the way, to get married to someone because you don't want them to get mad. That's kind of weird. Maybe life's different when you're older, when you're in your 50s. When Michael Brown had his life ended in Ferguson, it was a wake-up call. I couldn't believe that the cops left his body laying on the road for hours. I also felt embarrassed that this was the first time I was seeing this. Where the hell had I been? I never went to the protest, though, because Jeffrey didn't want me to. And instead of saying, screw you, I said, I'll protest in my heart. Some stupid S. That's when I started feeling resentment. All right, let's just go to the end of her story because I don't want to prattle on. This is a long story. Things started falling apart at home. Then a girlfriend of mine got cancer, and I realized if I got cancer, I would have lived my whole life pretending to be something I'm not. All of a sudden, I thought I can't be married anymore. There's no time for complicity. There's just none. This is a story about someone who was radicalized by propaganda, plain and simple. Jeffrey was absolutely shocked. He said, "Are you 1,000% certain?" I said, "I am." I told him I really wanted to work on making the world a better place, and I didn't feel I could do that within the confines of our marriage. He downloaded a divorce agreement, and we went to a notary public and the UPS store. The music playing, get this, was Landslide by Fleetwood Mac and White Wedding by Billy Idol. I left feeling free, like in high school when your parents are out of town. I found a passion and wanted to spend all of my free time doing it, and that's exactly what has happened. It's kind of sad that in this horrible time I found myself, but I'm also grateful both for what I had with Jeffrey and for where it allowed me to end up finally. I'm the feminist I should have always been. I'm not going to read any more of these stories, okay, but I'm going to point out, from the beginning, it seems like she was using this man. She also seems, according to her story, to have been radicalized by propaganda, thus divorcing her husband. So yes, I think that's a really good example of how the power of politics and the media is shaping relationships. Fair to say, huh? I'm going to leave it there. There's many more stories. This is a really, really long story. That's why I don't want to read through every single story. There's I think 4 or 5 stories and an interview. So we'll leave it here. Suffice it to say, yeah, I blame the media. Anyway, stick around. I've got one more video coming up in just a few minutes.